In front of me I have the former Polish post office, initially number 3 and then number 1 in the free city of Danzig. On the 1st September 1939, a battle took place here as local police and SS tried to get control of this building. Now, before I tell you the full story, I'm going to give you a bit of the background, but let's have a quick walk around first. On the right here we have a monument which was put up in 1979, and that was actually opened by Edward Gierek, who was the boss of the Communist Party, and he only had a year to go. To the left we see the courtyard to where the imprisoned defenders were taken after surrender. And in 1939 it looked different. There was a road down here, there was a wall around the post office, and we can see this very clearly in the newsreel which was put up by the Nazis as from the 6th of September 1939. So they came here prepared for trouble, and I'm going to explain why they deliberately sought out violence at this spot. And as I turn round, actually I'm going to have a look at the monument here. Now, I'm not going to sort of interpret what monuments look like. Art isn't quite my thing. But we can see people there putting up the red and white flowers, setting up the gardening. And the people who are actually doing that work are not speaking Polish. They're speaking Ukrainian. And that tells us that Nazi aggression continues this day. So it's now 2024, I'm saying this, it's almost the 85th anniversary. It will be next month, this is August, and it's sad to think that the very same Nazi ideology which caused all this suffering here and throughout Europe still exists. So the people doing that, I presume, I don't know, I didn't ask them, I presume they are refugees themselves. So here we have the Polish post office. Now, in 1919 was the Treaty of Versailles, and the free city of Danzig was created. Poland was created, but the problem was this, that Poland had to have access to the sea. The only place where it could have access to the sea was here. There was the only logical port to take, and thing is, Gdansk and Prussia, Germany, whatever, Teutonic Knights, various had sort of shared Danzig over the previous 5,000 years even. So it had switched from one to the other. But by 1919, here the population was overwhelmingly German speaking. The Polish population, it's difficult to actually give a number to it, but you're probably looking at somewhere between 4 or 5%. Now, the free city itself did have a little bit of a hinterland around it, so large part of it was agricultural as well. You can see that in other videos I've done on some of the villages in the free city. But here, you can see, here we are, bang in the centre. So that tells you how early I get up to do these things. So the this was granted to Poland's use, shall we say, the free city, but at the same time as it was separated from Germany. Now, it's not entirely fair to say that the Free City of Danzig was an independent country, because that is not actually true. Poland had rights which wouldn't be normally given one country over another. But for example, it controlled the railways, and this, for example, and a very good example of the local, the post. They controlled the customs. The port was theoretically independent, but the waterways were controlled by Poland. There was a problem almost immediately, and there was huge protests in the streets when they announced that this was going to happen, which tens of thousands of people on the streets protesting against this. Now, the thing was, as a result of the the declarations of the American president, he wanted places to become representative of the people who actually lived there, so that people who spoke, normally nationals associated with a language, maybe not with English, but with other languages, it certainly is. So therefore you have, for example, in the beginning of the 19th century, that within the breakup of the Turkish Empire, so people who spoke Greek should have a country called Greece, etc. People who spoke Polish in what was before the First World War, parts of Germany, Austria and Russia should have their own country, which should be Poland. This was German speaking. It was Germanization, which had happened here throughout the 19th century. In the 18th century, it was a very large Polish speaking population, but they had become assimilated within German culture. So even though they may have had Polish or Slavonic sounding surnames, they were German. Now, this created Gdansk becoming a free city. It created a great deal of resentment amongst the locals, and for example, you have the state when Poland was at war with the Bolsheviks. Then the dockers refused to unload war materials. Now, this could be, of course, that these dockers themselves were communists and didn't want to see what was to become the Soviet Union defeated, Soviet Russia defeated, and therefore didn't want to represent the landlords, so to speak, and therefore they refused to unload the weapons. This led to Poland being sort of granted, I'll do this in a different video, but it's not as simple as usually portrayed, but Poland got a bit of land called the Westerplatte to unload its military supplies. Now, part of the resentment against Poland from the local population came from people came from the Polish government to a certain extent, where it would do things sort of in your face. And I'll give you one example, and that's this: is shortly after the creation of this post office, it put 10 post boxes around in Polish. Now, this mightn't seem like much, but this was a sign of the control, if you like, of the Polish government. And today, I mean, if you saw 10 post boxes, you probably wouldn't even think about it. But then it was very much the stamps and the postal services are very much associated with the country. They weren't privatized. In fact, weren't privatized until very, very recently. This problem even went to the United Nations, and the United Nations told the Polish government that they couldn't put the post boxes anywhere they wanted within the free city, and they had to actually put them only one or two places in the centre. And so the Polish government got around this by putting it on post boxes on places which were owned by Poles. And this led to them in turn being vandalised. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it's the sort of thing that can lead to tensions. In the build-up to the Second World War, the Nazis tried to inflame tensions amongst ethnic Germans living in Poland. The amount of ethnic Germans living in Poland was probably similar to the amount of Polish speakers living in Germany. There's very little difference in the numbers themselves, but the same as they did in Czechoslovakia, and the same as Putin did in Ukraine and in other places, is claiming that the ethnic Germans were badly treated, there was genocide and this type of thing. The language used by the Nazis was exactly the same as that used by Putin. There's utterly no difference. For those of you who can know German and Russian, you can compare the two. So this led to tensions. Poles living and working in the free city of Gdansk came under pressure. They could be assaulted in the streets, and this was very common. And pressure was building up so much. Now, there were 3 post offices. The first one was in the port. The building is still there because I was there. At least I think it's still there. So the port's, there's no entry now, but I think I photographed something in the distance, which was the post office building, or the post office was inside. The second post office was in the railway station. You can still see that today. It's even got Postamt written on it in German still. And the third post office was here, but this was the biggest of them. And in fact, the port one, which was outside of the view of most people, but this one here became, because it's a very prominent position here where it is right now, so this became sort of a symbol to many people. With the deterioration, there's about 100 people working here, but so with the deterioration, and particularly by the end of August, when it was pretty likely that something was going to happen, the female workers were either sent to Gdynia or outside of the reach of where something might happen to them, on the families as well. Now here you had a situation where people, of the hundreds or so people, they would actually start spending the nights here, because it was after they finished their late shifts, it was deemed too dangerous to go home. And again, because the Gdansk police was giving no assistance whatsoever to people, Polish people. In June and July of 1939, Himmler made a couple of visits here, and he insisted on the setup of an SS unit, the SS Heimwehr Danzig. I've done a video on that, link is below. And that came to be about 1,500 men recruited locally, but also reinforced by people from Germany itself, and weapons from Germany. So the Heimwehr Danzig and SS and police units were on standby, and their objective on the 1st of September was to actually capture this. Now, the Poles had been aware of something like this might happen. They'd sent one person here, Konrad Gutkowski, and he was to organise not only that smuggling weapons in, which was done, and also they even had light machine guns in there, and also to arrange for the defence. Now, it's often said these were the postmen. Yeah, it's true they were postal workers, but all of them had military experience. This was done, they sent reinforcements from Gdynia and from Bydgoszcz, and so to say that they were postmen, letter carriers, like the person who sort of used to deliver letters when we still had them, like the person who delivers parcels today from DHL or whoever it may be, they're not sort of military trained, but almost all of them were all of them was Związek Strzelecki, the Sharpshooters Association, so they all had military, or nearly all of them had military experience. So to say the postal officials, it's true, but it's sort of not the full truth. So on the 1st of September 1939, the war is often said to start by the first shots from the Schleswig-Holstein 4:43 in the morning, firing at the Westerplatte garrison. That was heard here. Everybody that I know of who was here actually says that they heard the shots. I mean, the Westerplatte is about what? Yesterday I cycled at 9 kilometers, but if you did it in a direct route, I suppose about 5 kilometers from here, it was heard, and it appears to have woken everybody up. And that was the signal to begin an attack on this building. Now, this, to my way of thinking, is absolutely ridiculous, and this shows that the whole objective of this attack was to humiliate Poland at the beginning of the war. What would have made far more sense would have been this: if I had been in charge of the SS locally, or the police, what I would have done is I'd have put on my best uniform, and with a shoes and cap visor like mirrors, I'd have gone up to the door with an interpreter, a Polish-speaking person, and I would have informed them, I'm sorry, I very much regret to tell you that our countries are now at war, and we're going to have to occupy the building. Please, would you come out peacefully, and I'll give you an hour or so to think about it. That would have been the way I would have done it. I'd have waited until the post office opened, whenever it was, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I don't know, 8 o'clock, whenever it was, and I'd have done it then. Of course, everybody's known that the fighting was going on outside. That isn't, however, what happened. What they chose to do was to attack it. This part of the building was a post office. Over here, two other things are the employment office, I should say, and there was a police station. And so the first plan was to attack it from two sides, from the front, which was here, and from the police station coming round the rear. And they're coming through the rear. That completely failed. They managed to blow up a hole there. 4 people got in, and one of them at least was killed, and one of the Poles, Mr. Gutkowski, was killed. Also, coming from the attack from the front as well also failed, and they were met when they attacked the building with machine gun fire. Now, obviously, the Poles had been out they'd put a guard, as they had done every night. They had been doing every night for the past month or so. So what had happened prior is that the trees which were in front had been cut down to give a clearer view line of fire. So reinforcements were brought up. The TV was already here. Albert Foster himself, the Gauleiter, came up. Another attempt was made to get in, and this also failed. Now, they used 3 armoured cars, very clearly visible in the in the newsreel, which was shown us on the 6th of September 1939. One of those vehicles was actually damaged. Now, one thing I would say, however, again, and I've sort of repeated this in other videos, is that these armoured cars came from Austria, and had Austria been given the support not to go into Nazi occupation, then those armoured cars wouldn't have been here. And the same applies to the weapons that attacked Poland in 1939. The tanks, a large part of them, came from chassis manufactured in Czechoslovakia. And the problem here saying this is that the Nazis were allowed to get stronger and stronger and stronger, sometimes with the support of other countries. And when these weapons were turned against them, there was no longer anybody to support them. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to walk around and take you round the back of this building. The gate there was locked, but it's not locked down here. And at the same time, I can show you bit of Gdansk on this lovely summer morning. So the presence of the newsreel, I would suggest, demonstrates that the Nazis wanted to humiliate the Poles. They wanted to show something. So see how easy it was. See how these arrogant Poles were defeated. Something like that they would have used in their newsreel. But that wasn't exactly the way it worked out. They managed to hold out, and they held out all day. Now there was a couple of there was a 2-hour break in the fighting. There had been casualties on both sides. I'm showing you this here. This is the this is the largest street market in the world, or something like that. I think it is the world anyway. It's been on since the 13th century. It takes up a very large part of the town. Yarmark, Saint Dominic's Fair. That's what they call it. Yarmark Fente Dominicana, Saint Dominica, and. It's not as good as it used to be, or maybe I've just got used to it. Anyway, in 3 or 4 hours' time, it's going to be absolutely packed here. So this is why I came now. Now to continue with my story, the Nazis came to the idea that one way they're going to get the defenders out of the building was, first of all, they tried artillery. That didn't work very well. Indeed, one of the operators of one of the guns was actually shot dead. They came to the idea if they pumped fuel into the building, set it alight, set the building on fire, that would get the defenders out. You see that in the newsreel, and in the end, that is precisely what they did, and that was enough to get the defenders out. Now, in the streets around this post office, they had already prepared signs warning people not to approach. Now, the people at the other side of the post office, they were initially warned to go to the shelters, but once the fighting started, they were moved to the outside completely. They were evacuated. So the defenders, when the building was on fire, they agreed. They decided to surrender. The first 2 people who tried surrendering were killed. One of which first one was probably shot, and the second one was probably killed with a flamethrower, or was burnt to death. However, the others came out and they surrendered. Now, this is the rear of the post office building, and it's very similar. You see it's very similar from the photographs that exist. But what we've got is slightly different. There were some other garages somewhere around here which are on photographs but don't appear to be here any longer. But this wall was here, this big wall, and we do even have a photograph here. And when I do a documentary style video on this, all of this will be shown using original photographs and things like that. So there you go. You have the people from the post office workers there, and their hands up against this wall here. We see in German photographs from the time they were called Franc-Tireur. A Franc-Tireur is somebody who fights outside of like a guerrilla. He's not wearing a military uniform. An unlawful fighter. I've forgotten the correct legal term now. Having said that, it's totally ridiculous to call the people who are here franc-tireurs. Now, there's a number of things, but first of all, to this legal argument, I'll just show you this first. There you go, the fighters from the post office. So it's very socialist orientated design, a bit like the one outside is as well. Can't get through there, it's locked, or at least it was locked earlier. And I'll show you the sign over here before coming on to the final tragedy of this story. So the Gdansk town hall on the 21st of May 1998 gave the title of honorary citizen of the city of Gdansk to the defenders of the Polish post office in Gdansk. 1939, 1999 is written there, but it says 98. Well, never mind. The wounded, everybody was taken initially to the Victoria School. I've done a video on that. I'll give you a link below. This was one of the first places of internment for Poles living here, and after 3 days they were moved to Biskupia Górka, which is the Prussian casemates, also used as prisons on the hills above Gdansk. The wounded, however, were taken to hospital. Those were serious enough, but it was only then that their wounds were properly dressed. Certainly in the Victoria School, they were tortured, they were beaten, violence was used against them. On the 8th of September, those deemed to be in a condition good enough to be put on trial were put on trial. They were sentenced to death. The remainder were put on trial 3 weeks later. Also, all of them sentenced to death. Now, this went up through the lines. The people who then confirmed the death sentences: Edward Wagner, who later committed suicide in 1944 because of the coup against Hitler. Gunther von Kluge also committed suicide because he was thought to have been involved in the plot against Hitler in 1944. And Walter von Brautisch, who was head of the army, and he would have been put on trial, I think, only he died beforehand in 1948. So these were those are confirmed. What happened to the people who put them on trial totally illegally? Well, I've done videos on them, but I don't think it comes as any surprise that they actually continued their careers after the war. Anyway, I've done a video on one of them. What was the legal basis? Well, to call them franc-tireurs. You can't shoot a franc-tireur. A legal fighter couldn't, of course, be shot. But this, first of all, this was territory. This was Polish territory here, this post office. So they weren't in the Free City of Gdansk as such. Now, the Free City of Gdansk didn't even have the death sentence, and the law of the Free City of Gdansk applied. I think it was until the 1st of November 1939. Here, so it was annexed to Nazi Germany on the 1st of September 1939, but the law still was the law of here. So therefore, the death sentence didn't even exist. There was a retrial in Lübeck in 1998, and everybody was exonerated. Of course. 60 years after the event, 59 years after the event, didn't really help them. This was largely due as well to the efforts of Dieter Schenk. Dieter he used to work for the German crime investigator, I worked in Wiesbaden, and he became a writer, and he's wrote about Nazi crimes and the way Nazis have got away with it. He was born 1935, I think, if I remember rightly. I mean, I was too young when this all happened, but he still occasionally appears on German television and things of that nature. But it's largely thanks to his efforts that so much has been done to exonerate to the fact his book on the subject is, I think, I would have to say, the best one I know of. So that is strongly recommended. Right, I've done this video walking around, and when I try to do things off the top of my head, I sometimes remember make mistakes, and not only that, I have got no plan written in front of me. When I do something like this, I want to show you what places actually look like and what there is to be seen. So as you can see, it's a bit as a tourist place. This is my favourite place anyway. And now, obviously, in history, my specialist subject, Second World War. Within that, there's the Holocaust. But also, I've done lots of videos related to Gdansk, and particularly the Free City, or maybe less so the Free City, but certainly the beginning of the war. So I mentioned the Victoria School, where first place where people were detained as from the 1st of September 1939. There's also a place called Neufahrwasser, and that was a camp. That was a place where Poles lived. It was former Prussian barracks, but there was a large Polish community who sort of lived in this area that was surrounded by the SS and the police on day one. 1st of September, and everybody there was arrested. Now, why didn't they attack that place in the same place they attacked here? Probably because the TV cameras weren't there. I'm just using that as or newsreel cameras, I should say. I'm just using that as a possible reason. I don't know. I'm just a suggestion of something that hit me a few days ago whilst I was preparing this. I'll take you down here and show you this view, which I think is ultra attractive. Now, Gdansk is a trading city. It was because of the Vistula, the wheat was brought up the Vistula. From here it was exported, and then so people lived in these houses, or had these houses built in former times, were wealthy merchants, and this gives you a brief overview of it. And I'm now going to take you through the Hilton and down to the river. And now this is my favourite city. I would, I did live here, and I was thinking that I would like to come back here and live. I even thought of buying property here. I mean, I do like living in a motorhome, and not only that, but I need to point out that as a friend of mine said, I'm here now in the summer. And it's a bit different in the winter. I have been here in the winter when it's covered in snow and there's nobody around. This is the Motlava, which as a river is it's very short. Now the main river here now is called the Dead Vistula, Martva Wisła. And that is also a short river. It's only 59 kilometers in length, and got these day trips. You can go to the Westerplatte, usually said to be the place where Second World War started. I don't think it was. The first shots of Second World War were found in a place called Simonsdorf, Szymonkowo, and the reason they were fired there was because there was a commando raid on the bridges at Dierzów, Tczew, to capture those bridges, and the commando raid failed. Now the reason why they had to be captured, because it was part of the plan to transfer troops which had crossed the Polish corridor and put them on railway trains as from Tczew, take them across East Prussia to the other side, where they then could join an attack on what was then the eastern part of Poland. So that failed because the bridges were actually blown up. Oh, hear that noise? And I can show you what's happening by looking down here. Find a suitable place to look down there. So you see you've got that bridge there. Bridge is new. Now when I first came here in 1982, well, this bit looked like this on this side of the button there. It was just ruins on that. So this is all new. It looks old, but maybe this building here was sort of in a sort of bad state. Just can't remember now. But and over there as well, it was industrial. In fact, when I was in business, we had a project over there to return part of the, not to return, to make housing units on where an industrial facility was. I mean, they've been built now, and you can see that the bridge is now dropping down. So the temperature here yesterday was 23, today it'll be 28, and as I get older I find it more and more difficult to deal with the temperature. Whereas I used to like it in the mid-30s, those days are over. 22 is hot enough for me. So there's a number of historical things as well we can see. Here it's not just related to the Second World War, but me sort of being interested in this period. That's what really I'm interested in more than anything else. The history goes back 1,000 years of this city, so it's one of the oldest cities in Poland. It isn't the oldest, but it's one of the oldest, and certainly you can see, I mean, you've got these city walls, and which look as though they're which are old, and you've got buildings like this Philharmonic over there, which isn't old but looks as though it might be old. And there's the bridge gone down. And there we have this dual function. So it was built. There you go, 1482 to 1483. But all destroyed. This battle here in March of 1945, and this left the whole place in ruins, and that's why it was all destroyed. Now the island we've got over here, for example, that was I've got a video of it from 2009 showing the damage from the Second World War is utterly clear in that video. And unfortunately in those days I didn't it was a bit different on YouTube because you only allowed 100 megabyte videos, and also I wasn't using videos with stabilization, so the quality of it is really bad. Now another thing I did here was I came with my friend Tom Blatt. He escaped from Sobibor in 1943. Now after the war he came here in 1947, so I took him around trying to get him to talk about what it was like when he first came here, and the worst thing, it was stood in front of photographs anywhere. I don't know if that actually got published or it didn't. So here we have, this is the symbol of Gdansk, the crane here, and the you see this in many photographs. There's even a photograph when Hitler was here, Hitler standing under it. It was destroyed in fighting in 1945, so this was rebuilt, but it took them to about 1958 to actually rebuild it. But in my opinion, the reconstruction of everything is absolutely outstanding. And the final war damage then, now when I was here last year, you could still see part of the war damage, and it's now, the war damage has been incorporated into the building, which again for me is absolutely amazing. Right, now we'll go under here. And see the city. So the machinery for this crane, so this was to lift things up and from the port, so the ships stood outside. You've got these wonderful old houses here. And I'll take it down this street as well. So I'm sorry, I just know about the 20th century. I mean, I sometimes know about other things. Occasionally I do videos on other things, but I can't talk about architecture or the likes because I don't know about it. This thing called Goldwasser, gold water, which I think is some kind of alcoholic drink. And it's just seen as being a product from Gdansk. I do see though history as being, what I do is first of all, one of the things I'm trying to achieve is to tell people the facts as they were. So I do real history. So I try to defeat commonly believed myths by using evidence. I'll give you a couple of examples in this video. I talked about the postman not really being postman as we imagine being. In fact, I've seen videos, there are videos on YouTube with saying they were postman, which is okay, they were postal officials, but they were also military people. So there's one. Another myth that the Westerplatte was granted by the League of Nations to Poland. That's not actually entirely speaking correct. If you go to the website of the United Nations, it's archival part, and there's also sort of a League of Nations website as well, even though it hasn't existed since 1945. And there you will find that the treaty, which states that the Free City of Danzig gives the right of the use of the Westerplatte, but the Westerplatte was not granted to Poland. So de jure, in law, it is still part of the Free City of Danzig, or it was. And but only it could use this and for an indeterminate amount of time and at no cost, which effectively means it was, if you put a contract up like that, then there's it's effectively it was part of Poland. As you can see, this Mariacka, got this church here, I think is the second largest brick church in the world. This street is sometimes known as the Amber Street, as it's from here that amber sold. And here I was watching a German film, no, sorry, it was a Polish film, sorry, from about the late 30s, and it showed things like this here. This is part of the drain system. The water then comes out down here. Now you've got to say that this is pretty magnificent, isn't it? And all of this in 1945 was just a pile of ruins. This is what the Nazis did to it. This is what and now it's been rebuilt. Alright, I've got people here photographing themselves, so I don't know what to do. I'll just walk through. And I won't get in their way. Yeah. Let people work. And there is the magnificent church, cathedral. I'm not much really into churches. If you want to see churches, you've got to go somewhere else. I don't really know about them. And still you find these patches of land in the centre which still hasn't been developed, such as here. But I think it looks good. I like it like that. This is a result of Second World War, so Nazi Germany, and 44 years of communism. There's a look at Mariatska. Now, there will be people pointing, hey, you didn't show this, you didn't show that, you didn't show Tag, for example. That'll be in the comments, which is said to be the most attractive street. I don't really, I'll have to do it on something else. The thing is, I can't explain the history of these places. I don't really, I don't know, as I keep saying. These tents are like this because it's they've got their stock inside, and having said that, if this, that doesn't take a lot of breaking into if somebody wanted to do it. So I mean that shows that I hope that shows it's safe. So in this market you can get all sorts of stuff. So from food, you get local products, you get products from other countries, Azerbaijan, Lithuania, Turkey, Greece, Italy, and a lot more besides. They were the first ones that came in my mind. Having said that, it's pretty expensive. Here they've got this food area here, so this is made food. When I meant food to take home and prepare yourself, I meant earlier. But here we've got this section on food, and although Gdansk food. And here, this is Polish, fruit and chocolate, and Haida is that in English? Lard on bread, Sprotki. What's that in English? Forgotten. Them little fish you get, those little fish that I've forgotten whatever it is anyway. Spanish food, Italian. Turkish. There you are, Cuban. And Crimean. And I've actually got a video of me eating their stuff, and 3 years ago I started going to their little hole in the wall that they had, and it's now, I'm glad to see, it's even got a place here in the centre. I've got several places, so I'm rather pleased to see that. This is just the edge of the fair. I don't want to walk through the whole thing. Here we have a market. Now the market itself, this is a market all the year round, so it's a food market. I recall coming here in communist times, and a lot of the food producers in communist times were private. In fact, something like 75% of all farms in Poland were private, but they were small. Thing was, the collective farms weren't able of producing anything. So they've got the date there, 1896, renovated in 2005. And I used to live outside a similar one in Warsaw, and thing was, then I didn't know what I know now as far as cooking's concerned, and I would love to sort of live outside it now. But when the first supermarkets appeared in Warsaw, or the western ones, at the end of the 90s, I went to the big supermarkets, the hypermarkets, which was really, I think, pretty silly of me, because I could have all this fresh stuff outside. So we have here part of the another part of the city wall, and I walk down here to go back to the post office now to sort of finish off this little video of mine. In fact, it's quite a long video of mine. So now we've got the town has woken up, and see the difference from when I was here half an hour ago. There's a church up there called Święte Brigady, and there was in communist times, outside of that church there was always the SB, the what do you call that? This Secret Service had a recorded people who were inside there, and I had a photograph of it once. Here on the left we shall go down here. Because here I want to show something as well, and it's got a bunker here. This is very similar to a bunker, for example, at Oświęcim, Auschwitz, as it were, but in the town of Auschwitz. And there's an air raid bunker. Oh, in Berlin as well. Probably in other places as well, but I just can't think of any places off the top of my head. And now come back down here to what's down here. And so this is now back to where the post office is. Now this obviously is a very personalised account. Half of this video was a walk around Gdansk, and so I'm trying to show you why I like it so much, and so this sort of thing gets me quite excited in a way. So maybe that's actually come through. Here we are back at the former employment office, the former police station, but most important of all, the former post office in the city of Gdansk, former Polish post office. This is a really tragic story, and you know, I've shown you the positive sign of Gdansk, but now coming back to this, some things which are worth remembering are that the people here were effectively abandoned, although they didn't know it, by the Polish government. The idea had always been that these people here could be saved by the Polish garrison in Tczew. That if there are any problems, they'd get on the phone and the garrison at Tczew. What they failed to take into account was that the telephone lines could be cut. Indeed, around 4 o'clock in the morning of the 1st of September 1939, the telephone line was cut, as was the electricity supply cut as well. And that would, I think, have given the game away to anyone that things were beginning to get quite nasty. I take a different attitude to the Second World War to that of which is promoted, certainly was promoted by the last government in Poland, and that is the fact that the Gdansk, I believe, was seen as it wasn't seen as any importance by the Sanacja government. Indeed, when it attacked Czechoslovakia in 1938, Ribbentrop met the Polish ambassador Lipski in Berchtesgaden. He brought up the subject of Gdansk, and just have to read what Lipski's response. So Lipski said he'd have to respond to his government, and the government said, no, there's no way we're going to do that. But it wasn't an unfriendly meeting, and it didn't change the attitude of the then Polish government, which I think to a large extent sympathised with Hitler. And anyway, so the tragedy is people like this in here, in this post office, on the 1st of September 1939, who held out for such a long time. They were burnt out, and in the end they wwere murdered judicially. Some of them actually got away. They were in the confusion at the end. There were 6 that got out, that are known to have got out anyway, because it's not even known how many people were in there. And one was caught later. Another one was caught. One was caught next day, and he was put on trial. He put up the rest. Another one was caught later, and he ended up in Stutthof, and he was murdered there in December 1939. And others survived the war through being able to get away. So that was a very long video on what actually happened here. And there we go. So thanks very much for being with me, for putting up with me for this long, if you actually stood with me for all this time. And I normally don't do things this long. There will be a documentary type video as well, and which I'll upload whenever I can. My problem is I actually filmed this here 3 years ago and I didn't actually upload it. Now doing this, at least I've got something to show, and then the documentary I can actually work on it, put it together. I have actually finished writing it though, and it's in 3 parts. So thanks all and all the best for me in Gdansk, Poland.